Well, hello there. This is going to be a little bit of a review of a book I just had ordered. And boy, am I disappointed. Now, as some people, few, I think one or two have just saw this, I've tried to learn about Druidry for about 2 years now, because I still feel there is something calling me. But everything I try, this is going to be a rant, I'm sorry. Everything I'm reading about and hearing from Druids, it's like, what sort of superfluous, silly, modern kitsch esoteric of 1980s is this? And I'm sorry, this was just, these were two great names. There is one Philip Carr-Gomm, and he is or was until 2020 the leader and archdruid, or what the title is, of the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids, an English order with a stunning 17,000 members. I got this from Wikipedia now. Going back all the way back to the ancient Druid order of 1717. So really, if you think, wow, he was from 1988 to 2020, that means 32 years, the leading Druid or archdruid of this ancient order from 1717, a lineage until today, which is quite an astonishing accomplishment. I give you that. And then you read his book called Druidcraft, subtitle The Magic of Wicca and Druids, which the subtitle already made me a little bit suspicious. Now I must say, I don't have anything against Wicca per se, but it is largely an artificial sort of spirituality. And if you are happy with being a Wicca, that's not something that I want to critique. It's beyond me, that each to his or hers. But Druidry is something very specific. Now the problem is, of course, despite what people will say, overall what Druidry was is lost. So it's a sort of an empty place. There were several attempts to recreate Druidism. For instance, there is this, the Ogham alphabet, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, the Ogham alphabet, and there are various Druidry books trying to interpret the Ogham letters, attributing them to certain trees, and then writing lengthy articles what these trees mean. As a historian, I'm quite doubtful that has any historic foundation, but it is all right. I'm open to creating something new when something was lost. That's not the problem. There were Druid books which were revolving around the trees and trying to connect the Ogham letters with trees and then attributing a spiritual meaning to each tree. It's mostly likely a made-up from I don't know when. But I have no problem with that. It's all right if the system is coherent and somehow convincing and not just some generic esoteric 1980s trash like this unfortunate book. If this was the leader of the most renowned Druid order of England, I'm crying for Druidry. I'm really sorry to say. And then there was a preface by no less than Vivian Crowley. So two big names, the leader of the Druid order of 30 years plus, and Vivian Crowley with a preface. And this book is, I don't know, this is on such a basic level, introduction into basic esoteric spirituality. I mean, such books may have their places for people who have never heard of witchcraft, of Druidry, of paganism, of whatsoever. But I'm not certain for whom this is. And they say, oh, this is a new Western natural spirituality. I should have been very reading this description, nature spirituality, connecting Wicca and Druidry. No. I mean, I was curious about this, and I thought, okay, it values Wicca and Druidry as two distinct traditions. And describing both approaches, which I would have been interested in, but trying to intermix them into something, and then it's like Wicca is the moon and the female, and Druidry is the sun and the male, and they are connected into something new, or so he says, called Druidcraft. You know, like mixing Druid and witchcraft, which is, I'm sorry, the very idea makes me shudder. I'm not a Wicca, and I was always disinterested because, for me personally said, and I'm sorry if I hurt some people's feelings, just my opinion. You can have a negative opinion about what I do religiously or spiritually, yeah, so no problem. But I had always the feeling that Wicca, as far as I met Wiccas and they explained me what they do, an overly simplistic system. Like, there is the god and the goddess, and it's like, it's this, instead of all gods and the multiplicity of deities, the richness of law is all sort of condensed into, oh, that is the goddess and that is the god, and that's basically it. And a lot of covens, of which I had the opportunity to meet, it was more like bored housewives, hobby spirituality. I mean, and I'm saying this as someone who is walking a path of various magic, shamanistic, Druidism, classical ritual magic, assortment of many other things. There's hardly an occult thing which I have not tried for many years and trained myself. And this is like this easygoing way of presenting witchcraft, druidry, or the occult, if in lack of another word, like just, oh come dear goddess, moon goddess, send us healing. So, and that's, you put 3 candles and ask the goddess for healing, and snap, healing comes. No, that's not how nature works. That's not how magic works. And that's not how the fucking gods work, I'm sorry to say. I try to, I'm mostly a person who connected with these things on a personal gnostic way, because all the books about nature spirituality, both on the Wicca traditions and from the Druid traditions, seemed like artificially made up. And I thought, oh, that's all nice and dandy, but I can connect to energies. So that's what I trained, and I was trained in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn in actual magical techniques like astral projection and other things. So there are things you have to train, and the training of abilities, of skills, is something that you need if you want to connect to those powers. You just don't just place 3 candles and make a few breaths, taking a few breaths and make a relaxed mind, and then say, oh, let's, dear goddess, send us all healing, and we all love each other, healy, lovey. I'm sorry, that's not how magic works. And that's not how dealing with deities work. Not at all. And that is not what nature teaches us. There is there is, especially in Druidry, I'm not so certain about Wicca, because Wicca is not my expertise. I only know Wiccas insofar that many years ago I was in more or less frequent contact with Wiccans. So I am aware that my judgment about Wicca is quite limited, so I won't say much about this. But Druids were Druids, the ancient Druids, I know this as a historian, were hardcore people. There were philosophers of a complex philosophy, whatever it was, we don't know anymore. And their training lasted, I don't know how long, decades, until you became a Druid. It wasn't something nilly-willy that was just, oh, let's love each other and place lit candles and, oh, now I'm a druid now. Snap. Whoopsie-doopsie. No, it's a hardcore lifetime dedication. And this is the first thing. This dedication thing. It's not something that, oh, now it's a full moon, let's make a full moon healing ritual and a love ritual. And there's no question asked, why are you even doing this? I mean, this is the first I had disciples in classic ritual magic order of the Golden Dawn tradition, where I educated pupils for quite a number of years. Not so much in paganism, which I just did for myself. But people going away of a witch, of a Wicca, and they have their 3 degrees of initiation. Or Druids, they have their 3 degrees too. It's not something that you just hand over to people by reading a book, and it's a meager book in size. What was this? It says 216 pages. Dear God, it felt like half the size. It's such... When pagan and esoteric wave, new esoteric wave started, or restarted, shall we say, in the 1980s, there were some kitsch papers and newspapers monthly, magazines, which kitchen housewife magic, like the Sun. It's if you're in Britain, it's like the Sun for witches. That's sort of the level that I was feeling to read here. Now, I have worked with connecting with trees, talking to trees, if you wish, making astral projections, going into nature, trying to connect with it, and I learned that nature is something harsh. And I'm really sick and tired of people teaching that nature spirituality is something about love, harmony and peace and getting along and just relaxing and just ask the goddess for healing and all will be well. No, that's not how nature works. That's not how gods or goddesses work, and that's not how spirituality works at all. In order to achieve something, there is something, a word that is now quite shunned and disliked by people of the pagan world, especially those of the Wicca, Druidic and Celtic world, as far as I meet, and that is the word sacrifice. Instead, they prefer offering. No, the word is, what you seek is sacrifice, because in order to achieve something of equal value has to be sacrificed. I know I'm quoting an anime series here, but it accounts for Druidry, witchcraft, and nature spirituality just as well. I'll give you a personal example. I worked many years with my shamanistic, to find and then work with my shamanistic totem animal, spirit animal. Some say it should not be revealed, but in order to explain it to you, I tell you it's the doe. The doe. Not certainly I pronounce it. Not the stag, the doe, the smaller version. And they have a different spirituality. And there is a really wonderful book by Ted Andrews. Let me look for the title. Animal Speak, Ted Andrews. If you want to know something that is real, something that is honest, something that is useful about nature spirituality, then buy Animal Speak by Ted Andrews. He's writing about virtually any animal there is, and one of the first things that you learn about spirituality from the animal perspective is there are basically 2 types of totem or spirit animals, hunter and prey. And the doe is a prey animal. And that is something frightening to have as a main spirit guide, as a main totem spirit, totem animal. And at first, I was totally in my humanist Christian worldview, and these people are too. It is like all is harmony, all is good. They're projecting, these people are projecting a Christian humanist version of morality on nature spirituality of the past. And this is turning my stomach upside down. If I'm not a druid from in the knowledge of 1717, but I can assure you, as someone who has walked a spiritual path and confronted powers, both dark and light, I know something about this, the pathways of the other world. What nature teaches us is, yes, there is harmony, but there is also conflict. There is war. There is eat and be eaten. Example, there is an insect, I'm sorry I forgot which it was, which puts its young, its larvae, into the living body of another insect or animal, and when these larvae grow inside that body, they eat that body from the inside alive, slowly, very cruelly and gruesome. The spirits of animal is hunter and prey, and there is a certain balance of give and take. That is what nature teaches. And it is even with the plants. I mean, there is these strange things that people who practice so-called nature spirituality, pagans, Wicca, Druids, the whole lot, they are so focused on healing, harmony, that they have no... What is the signal of illness, of hurt, of harm, of conflict? They speak of a balance of sun and moon, male and female, but they know nothing about balance. They're only seeing one side, the side of feeling, the side of harmony, the side of goodness. No effort. Just to sit there, there's the full moon, put on 3 candles, ask the moon goddess, please be kind and send me harmony. I mean, if from what I heard, that Philip Carr-Gomm is a psychologist. Not sure, is he still alive? What did he step back? I'm not certain. It's just a question I just don't know right now. Let me see if the author still lives. Yes, he seems to still live. He's a psychologist and a psychotherapist. And that's, I mean, I have always problems with psychology and psychotherapy, I tell you honestly, because there is this idea to psychologize occultism. And I'm quite vividly against it. Psychology and especially psychotherapy are tools of modern Western society to make you function in modern Western society. That is the main goal of psychotherapy. I mean, I won't say that is what all psychologists and all psychotherapists do, but basically, I mean, psychology and psychotherapy are basically, or were basically invented as tools when... Now I have to get it as well. Our modern society is a broken system of society. It's an imbalanced system. Modern technology is a system of violating the basic rule of nature. In order to achieve something of equal value must be sacrificed. That is the basic principle of natural spirituality, or of spiritual development in general. But our modern society with technology, and especially based on the idea of Christianity, because Christianity has developed this idea, especially in Protestantism, And it's no surprise that a Protestant country like England has this projection on Druidry and Wicca. Protestantism has this idea, sola gratia, that is a principle of Martin Luther. Only by grace we can get from God forgiveness. That is what Martin Luther taught. And this sort of Wicca and Druidry is essentially Lutheran Protestantism projected on paganism. Like, we just have to ask the dear goddess or the great god, and they will give us because we ask nicely. And I'm sorry, that is not what paganism is. Paganism is sacrifice and you achieve something. That does not mean yet to have to sacrifice something with blood. A sacrifice can be anything. For instance, I'm a Roman polytheist, largely, but I work with multiple pantheons. And when I go to Juno or Hera, Greek Hera, Roman Juno, I needed some help for personal, and I promised what a votive, meaning I was crafting out of wood images, and that was work, that I sacrificed time and effort, and training myself with an unknown crafting in wood was unknown, was unfamiliar to me. That was a sacrifice of effort. Or when I trained my skills, which took me decades, like astral projections and many other magical techniques. That is what I expect of someone who wants something from the deities or from nature. Telling people these realities. And not making a sort of Protestant Christian humanism version of paganism. And I'm sick and tired of reading these types of books and reading these types of texts. This type of, I mean, from a human perspective, I can understand it. After more or less 2,000 years of Christianity, we are all imprinted with the Christian idea of what religion is. Like so many pagans and polytheists are arguing about this futile question, what is the correct way of Roman paganism, of Germanic paganism, of Celtic paganism, which is the most unpagan question to ask. Because that is a typical Christian question. What is the right way? First, so there is a freedom of ways. Not that I'm going to believe that I say there is just one way. Far be it for me to say this. But there are things which all pagan and polytheist systems have in common, and that is, first, the traditions, of course. In the Celtic, we have some of the texts we still know. However, I found them extremely difficult to interpret, unlike Germanic or Roman or Greek texts. I found them very cryptic, the Celtic stories. And I know some interpretations. I visited Wales and Scotland and talked to people there who followed these ways. I read some of the books about interpretation of the Mabinogion and other texts from those times, but I found that their interpretation from the stories were felt a little bit like guesswork. Like, how do you come from these events of the story to that conclusion, what it means? But okay, each to his, hers, and people have to work with what they have. It's all right. And I'm open to the idea, like Wicca, to more or less create something new, which Wicca is, whether they want to admit it or not, and create a sort of new syncretism. I mean, the people did that in antiquity. Like, there were mystery schools in Rome and Greece, and like the Serapis cult, for instance, or others. The people in ancient polytheist and pagan times did this. Or, for instance, when Gaul became conquered by the Romans, the people of Gaul created syncretist cults of Gallo-Roman deities. And they did this in the original pagan times. So I think creating something new is all right, unlike some so-called traditionalists who say that it's impossible and it's not allowed. I'm not one of these traditionalists, so that don't think that I'm criticizing that part of this book and this set of ideas. But Christianity and paganism are anathemas. I'm probably pronouncing this wrong. Sorry, English is not my native tongue. They are opposites, polar opposites. Christianity is that a dude was sacrificed, namely the Son of God, Jesus Christ, in order for sins that I have inherited, which people 6,000 years ago did, which is the most unpagan and dishonorable thing for any pagan to think. My sins are what I did, not what forefathers did. And there is not cleansing just by believing, which is what essentially Christianity is. You just have to believe, and that is just the mercy of God. And that is essentially this kind of hippie, neo-Druidism, neo-witchcraft, which is in this book. And I won't say it's the mindset of all Druids and all Wiccans, but it was of all which I met, and of all which I heard, or let's say almost all. And it irritates me, it angers me, because I think Wicca is a new creation, so they can do whatever they want. I have no right to say anything about that. But Druidry, the term, I think that would deserve something better than this, than some sort of modern psychology, overly emphasizing harmony, love, and healing, which is essentially psychotherapy and mixed with Christianity in the terminology of Celtic, a little bit of Celtic sprinkled in. This is such a thin pastiche of true spirituality, of true understanding, of true spiritual growth. True spiritual growth, like take Jung, Carl Gustav Jung, the Swiss psychoanalyst. If you want to learn something about true spirituality, you learn much more from him. For instance, shadow work, like working with your shadow, your dark side, the monster within you, which is the wolf, the destructive being. Confront that, learn about that. Learn about that, what and why it is necessary. And not this, oh, all is one, all is love, all is peace. No, fuck you. That's not how you are, and that is not how nature is, and that is not how the world works. And this inability and unwillingness to confront the dark side of the world, of oneself, it's making me really nuts, because I believe if Druids know about one thing, then they knew about this. If they were the powerful sages, so feared and respected as they were, then I refuse to believe that their reorganization is be some sort of psychotherapist, psychology, Christian, hippie, love mumbo jumbo. I think Druidry, deserves better. The path of a Druid is a path of sacrifice, like all who walk the path of spirituality. And I know this from a personal experience. When many years ago I first approached nature, the spirituality of trees, I had worked with the spirituality of animals. I was not very attracted to the spirituality of trees. I don't know why. And then years ago, I approached trees in the way I approached spirit animals. Like, listen, I want contact. And I was brutally rejected. The god of the god of the forest came to me and said, "Go away. You're doing it wrong. Go. Never come back." Making the spiritual experience very, very simplified. And it was for over a year that I was traumatized and embittered over the experience. And then I let it rest and ignored the tree spirituality. until just some time ago, about a year, I began to a change of mind. You see, I am chronically ill. And so my approach to go to the tree spirituality was one of need. In the mindset, I want something. But when I went back to the nature, back to the trees, I didn't go with that. I was, for reasons, seeing how the world declines into chaos, disorder, anarchy, and probably we're going to hell in a handbasket in our world. I just went to the trees and wanted to say, I'm sorry for what humans do. Tell me what I can do to help you. It was not out of calculation that I asked this question. It was really, I felt like an outcast of this world. And I went to the trees again after years, just seeking some kindred spirit, and said, damn, humans are destroying the nature, and they're destroying my life with ongoings in politics and real life. But seeing your suffering, dear nature spirit, dear nature energy, tell me, what can I do for you? And then I was welcomed, and the god of the forest came and said, now you've understood. You've approached us not with the question, give me, but what can I do for you? And that was a harsh lesson for a year. It took me years after being rejected. And that is what you have to teach people if you want to teach. It's a long way of harsh lessons. And it's not nilly-willy light a candle and ask the moon goddess and the forest god, please come give me healing. That's not how things work. Nature is a harsh mistress. She's beautiful, bountiful, giving you much. But it's something where you are returning something. You don't go with a mindset of I want. And these people are full of this. I want to be healed. Yes, why should I heal you? What do I, the goddess of nature, get from healing you? That is the question you have to ask yourself. And that is no matter if you go to a goddess or god of whatever pantheon, whatever religion. Why should this god help you? What do you have to offer? What do you have to give? What do you have to sacrifice? Like the dedication of service. For instance, I'm a priest of the god Apollon, of the Roman religion. And I did not go to Apollon just out of a whim, and I did not say, okay, snap, I want to be a priest of Apollon. I went through years of preparation and then approached him slowly in various ways, in conversations. What do I have to give? What do I have to do? What can I do for you to be worthy of you? That was the mindset that I was honing. And then it took us over a year that I was accepted as even the lowest, simplest priest of Apollon. Through a mindset which I had trained in years before, walking other pathways, learning that spiritual progress is first you give something away. Not this neediness, all this harmony, all this I wish, I want to be healed, I want to be cured. I want. And there are dark aspects of each deity. Apollon is the god who also has poisonous arrows, just as he's the healer god. And every deity has these dark and light aspects, just as we, just as nature. It's not all harmony. Sometimes the lesson that if you dedicate yourself to whatever power, deity, principle, if you truly dedicate, your teacher must tell you there will be harsh realities raining down and being beaten down upon you from time to time. Like if you ask the powers, the spiritual powers, please be my guide through life, let me be your priest or witch or druid, then expect decades of learning and expect decades of harsh events brutal events happening in your life in order that you learn. And these teachers are withholding that reality and thinking that, oh, you just have to... It is this positive thinking spirituality, which I vividly, profoundly hate. The people telling, oh, you have to just to think positive and then positive things will happen in your life. No bullshit. There are dark powers, there are disruptive powers. There are hostile powers to you. And that is a part of the balance of nature. That is what nature teaches. That is what spirituality, what true spirituality teaches you. Not this hippie, tree-hugging, all is love nonsense. I'm sick and tired of reading this. And then when I see two big names, the 32 years leader of probably the biggest Druid order, and Vivian Crowley, and then this book writing such nonsense, such pure and utter nonsense, which is basic, which you can read for free on every Wiccan website on the first 3 pages. Like, oh, there's the full moon and the new moon, and so light 3 candles, and pray for the moon goddess to healing and harmony, and sun and moon and male and female. It's all, we all love and go in harmony. And this is, I just want to puke if I hear this one more time. This is so super simplified. It's like Mickey Mouse spirituality. I'm sorry. I know a million people will be offended if ever anyone hears that, which I doubt they will, because the last thing that I will is post this on some Druid or witchcraft forums, because I know they will just ban me for being mean. No, I'm not saying this to piss on your spirituality. I'm saying this because you're wasting your time if you're doing this. I mean, it's okay. Maybe it's okay. Maybe if there is this housewife spirituality, this houseman spirituality, where you just light your candle and, like the good Christian, goes to church on Christmas, or maybe one Sunday every month. Maybe it's all right to have a pagan spirituality on that on that very thin level of spirituality. Maybe that's all right. But then don't sell it as something else. Then it's like it's just a religious cult where you go to and don't think too much. This has its place. I'm not slandering that. If that's your way and makes you happy, by all means. But it's not. Don't sell that as spiritual progress, which it isn't. Spiritual progress is a lifetime dedication. It's a harsh life and a harsh path. And trust me, if you approach these powers for real, it's not just like a fantasy story where you close your eyes and imagine things. It's real training of real abilities and real connections, which have backlash into you, which are tough stuff. It is why I'm still extremely doubtful in itself. I was lucky to I had teachers, real teachers, 3. So I was lucky. It was in the 1980s and 90s. I had real teachers from whom I had learned, which was luck, which is very difficult today. I mean, there are a lot of people who call themselves teachers, but most of them just aren't. They're just telling them what they read in books. And I'm profoundly of the opinion, I mean, for many people there are no other ways. They have no teachers around, so they need books. And probably you can self-teach if you really go into things. Learn from many perspectives. Talk to many people, and not people who tell you all is harmony, all is simple and easy. Walk away from such people. People who tell you simple ways, shortcuts, run away from them because they are wasting your time. if someone is really telling you the hard facts and saying this is a demanding path of a lifetime, of a true dedication, walking I mean, the Christians have one thing where there is something that is not entirely untrue. You know, in the Catholic Church, they have said that a priest is not allowed to marry. No, I'm not saying the priest should not be allowed to marry, but there is a truth within it, because they said if you are walking truly dedicated to the divine, you don't have time for family. It's not entirely true. I suppose you can, but expect it to be as demanding as having a wife, a husband, and a family. If you have the energy, time, and power to do that extra, then be married, have children, but know that walking a spiritual path is as time-consuming as work, as children and family. It's not something that you can do nilly-willy in once a month. It's something that you do day by day, month by month, year by year for decades. There will be breaks where you have nothing spiritual to do, where you have worldly tasks to take care of. It's not like all life. That is also a typical mistake that spiritual seekers do. Like they expect all life is permanently a spiritual heyday. No, there are sometimes you just have to fill your tax report and care about earthly matters. And that too is a lesson of spirituality, that there is a time which is unspiritual. This is totally, you're just going to a movie, eating a pizza. And that too is a sort of balance. That you're not going into outer space and being 24/7 one with the stars and the moon and the sun. That's not balance. That's not balance either. True spirituality means that there is time which is totally unspiritual, where you live in the here and now in a very ordinary way, in the literal sense of the word, ordinary. That you return and bring this back. I could say a million things more, which is not particularly. I went too far away from from this book. It's just that this book, I'd expected this with curiosity. And after going through it, I was so disappointed, because it was the same frustrating, watered down, neo-Christian, neo-humanist, neo-psychologist, sugar-coated fantasy nature spirituality, which is not what nature teaches and which is not what a dedicated lifetime of spirituality actually means. I mean, I could repeat myself here 1,000 times and finish it now, because nobody will listen to this anyway or hear this. And I know that I will not post this on some Druidic forums, because I have my beef with the Druid movement right now. Because when I felt the call, and I felt the call in many ways, but what these people who practice Druidry is, I don't know what it is, but it isn't Druidry. I'm going to agitate the entire community by saying 90% of you are not Druids. Whatever you are not Druids. I'm not really fond of John Michael Greer. If you are Druid or into Druidry, you should have heard his name. But with all the beef that I have with him, and his views, they are a little bit too negative in my view. Like, humanity is all on a path of damning nature, and the only way is going back to 1880. That is too extreme on the other side. He's an embittered man, in my personal opinion. I've heard him speak on YouTube, and that was quite a letdown. Hearing speak how embittered, negative, oh, humanity is destroying nature. I mean, yes, it's true. But it was such an embittered perspective on the other way. It was like the other extreme, like these Druids always talking about harmony and love, and he's always talking about how cruel destruction and evil of brought by modern technology. It's like, no, that's not what. If the green if nature, the power of the green, teaches one thing, then that it is balance. And those druids who speak all about love and harmony are just as mistaken in their extreme as those Michael Greer druids who speaking about the harshness and brutality of nature and the imbalance and this system of the Western technology society will come crashing down. These are like two, and I see those both types of druidry, and I say, you are both lost in the extremes, guys. Maybe these two sides have lost communications. I don't know why. But if there is a true druidry, then it is a balance between these two. The acceptance that we have a modern society, but criticizing where it went wrong also. And neither going to this all is love nor all is doom sort of druidry. And that is why I say, personally, in my opinion, 90% plus X or whatever calling themselves druids are not. Because nature is balance, it is harmony, it is beauty, but it is brutality, destruction and change also. I mean, the Druid movement began as a Christian movement. I know this, and it is, you can see this. In many of these traditionalist Druid books, it sounds like Jewish Kabbalah, written with, and then a thin veneer of Celtic ideas pasted over a Kabbalistic, Jewish Kabbalistic concept. You see the three worlds, like top world, middle world, underworld. It's like tree of life from the Kabbalah. And the elements and what have you. I mean, if you have nothing, you borrow and you develop. It's not wrong and bad in itself. But the problem is that this type of druidry breathes way too much of Hebrew dualism, like the good spirit world and the gross material world. It has a little bit too much of this, in my personal view. I'm not sure how to get over this. I trained in Kabbalistic system in the Order of the Golden Dawns for over 20 years. So it's a good system. It's not bad. It works. It's just that I left it behind about 12 or 15 years ago because, you see, I'm older already. I left it behind 12 or 15 years ago because I felt my pagan polytheist ways were no longer, I could no longer bring it together with these Kabbalistic dualistic energies. I didn't want to overshadow this anymore. I cut it out of myself. And it was not easy because I went an initiatory system largely based on the Kabbalah for 20 years plus. But the state of druidry is making me cry. And sometimes I think really some people have to come together and really have, like the Christians had their Council of Nicaea in the, 4th century. The Druids need something like this to counsel and bring order into their house. Because like this, you either have anti-modernists of the type of Greer with this retrotopia, who only sees this world's solution of falling, and every technology as the devil, and then all lovey-dovey harmony psychologists like, what was his name? Mr. Carr-Gomm, who tells you that all is all right, just make your inner peace and all will be fine. Well, they know these things longer than I do, so who am I to tell them what druidry is and isn't? You will say, and you will be right. It's not. But like a man who has walked many paths, spoke to many powers, and seen many things, I tell you, both sides are in the wrong, and what you are teaching needs improvement Thank you for listening to me. If you hate what I say, it's all right. But then I thank you all the more that you had the patience to listen to me to this point. Otherwise, maybe even if you really dislike it, what probably most people who walk these paths will, reacting to this or stopped listening to me long ago, if you hated what I say, it's your right, it's your prerogative to do. Just give my perspective, my critique, a chance to consider that in some points maybe I'm not entirely wrong. Because I think really the world would need a Druidry which neither is world rejecting like the misanthrope, world hating, technology hating Mr Greer, and it is more than just nilly-willy psychotherapy, feel-good lovey-dovey like from Mr Carr-Gomm. It would have to say something that takes in both the dark and the light, the chaos and the order. In these words, remain or not, it is your decision. Thank you for listening. Be blessed, namaste, and be well on your path.